Welcome back to the channel. Today we're working on the twin turbo Dodge Dakota RT. Alright, so we're finally going to fix the power steering. I've been driving around with no power steering. It's kind of a pain. It'd be nice to finally fix it. So what we've done is got rid of the factory Dakota pump in favor of this Jeep pump, which bolts in front of the cylinder head, which you can see we needed because we needed that space for the up pipe and the turbo. So I was able to rebend the factory pressure line. It didn't take a whole lot, and it's plugged right back into where the pressure line should go on the Jeep. But I had to take the reservoir off because it's plastic, and it probably would have hit anyway. If it didn't, it would have melted really quickly. So I've got these off Amazon. I think they're like 37 bucks. They're for a Holden, like a LS based something. I don't exactly know how it was supposed to mount, but they were cheap enough. I'm going to use one as my power steering reservoir and one as my coolant overflow, which it's not that big for a coolant overflow, but it's better than nothing. So plan is to mount both of these side by side over here. So first thing we need to do is figure out how we're going to mount this. There's nothing really flat over here. There's one spot that has threads in it that's kind of flat. So I'll probably have to figure out how to make a mount off of that and something else. I'll probably just measure something up, scribble it down, and make it at work tomorrow. So I got a nice shear there and a brake, makes life a lot easier. And these things will end up probably stitched together. It's either going to end up stitched together like that, or I'll put them out in the middle, but either way they'll end up attached. So let's get to kind of figuring out how we're going to do that. Looks like step one is just going to be weld these two together just like this. So we'll weld it together, and then I don't know how it was mounted in the Holden or what this is for, but we're going to go ahead and grind these off of both of them. And I think once this is here, where that hole is right there, I think I can bend a piece of aluminum straight down and grab that bolt. And then once we get that situated, then we can figure out how we're going to make the second bracket, and I think it's going to need 3 total. One down there, one down on the other side, and then something coming from here to try triangulate it so it's not just sitting there until it breaks. But let's get this welded. We're welded together 4 places, and I've got those old brackets ground off, but looks like someone turned the lights out, so we're done for the day. It's the next day and we're back at it. I went ahead and cut up a piece of 2-inch angle and trimmed it a bit, and I've got this marked, so this will sit right there. So we're going to take that back off and get it welded, and then start looking at how we're going to attach the next bracket. First leg is welded on. This weld actually looks a lot nicer. The machine's adjustable with its frequencies and AC balance stuff, and I'm not that versed in how to use it properly. but I turned up the frequency and turned down the clearance effect so that it would penetrate more instead of getting so widespread, and it definitely did that. I just should have prepped a little better, but I'm learning. Had to move it quite a bit from where I first marked it because it was leaned up this way quite a bit. But now I think we're flat enough. So I'll start planning out the next one because it's still... shoot, one more out this front side might actually have it good enough. Well, I'll figure that out real quick and we'll move forward. Here's what I come up with off camera for the front side. So this sits in here with that one bolt right there, and then this pretty well matches the curvature of the fender. So I just got to mark that and drill 2 holes, and I think that's going to have it secure enough. So let me go find a Sharpie. So how we're going to plumb this thing. As designed, this is going to be the outlet to the pump, and it's got this nice ridge for this O-ring right there. So this fitting I've got a decent amount of confidence in. However, the return line right here, the smaller fitting, if you notice, well, you can see that there's not much of a lip like this bigger fitting had for that O-ring. You see how deep that lip is for the thread start? This doesn't really have that. So for right now, I think I'm going to get my countersink bit and bevel it out a little more, because right now when you tighten it up, it just starts mashing the O-ring out because there's nowhere else for it to go. So I don't really see that working. So I'll bevel it a little bit. In the end, if we've got big problems with it, these are aluminum fittings, I will take the O-ring off, clean it up, and weld them on, and then we don't have to worry about that. So that takes care of the power steering side of things. Now this is my little coolant puke tank. So this isn't going to work for the inlet. I've got a 3/8 hose coming from the radiator cap, from the overflow to this. So this guy is too big, plus it's pointing right at the turbo. I really need a 90. So this one's not going to work, but I've got this fitting from work. This is a steel 8 O-ring plug. So I can drill and tap the hex out of it. It makes it a pain to get it out later, but you have this ridge to grab a hold of. But I will drill and tap this for a pipe fitting, and then I'll just have me a little pipe 90 coming over here with a barb for my inlet. Now the outlet right now, as it fills up, it's just going to puke right back out of the outlet at this height. So that's really not going to work. So my plan right now is, once again, I still need a 90 fitting, and I've got a plug for that one too, and I'll have to bevel it for the O-ring as well. But in my fitting, or in this fitting, I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do it yet, but I need to put a hose internally so that the hose can come through and go up to the top of this. It's just got to float around here so that as this fills up, it won't bleed out until it fills all the way up, or at least close. So we're going to get this sorted out. We'll get this one beveled too, and then I will drill these and tap them probably in the lathe just to make it easier so it's not too crooked. And we'll just see how that's going to work. As I get the bolts from Ace, I'll also get some fittings. And I'm not sure if I want to put DOT line or maybe tap both sides of this so they both have a little bit of a pipe thread to them. I've done it before and had a fitting coming out of both ends, but it's awfully shallow to do that. So I may end up using a piece of DOT line epoxied in to the brass 90 barb fitting that's going to go into that. But I'll figure that out while we're at Ace. Got my counterbore bit. We're just going to try to bump this in a little bit at a time so we don't go too far. Try to keep this straight. You really want to spin these slowly. A lot of people just go wide open and they chatter and do weird stuff, but if you just keep it moving real slow, it'll work pretty good. Stop and check. That's not bad. It's still trying to pinch the O-ring. I know you really can't see it that well, but if you can see the gap right there, where the black's sticking out, it's still trying to pinch the O-ring and shove it out the side, which means it's just going to bust the O-ring. So that's not good. So we'll give her a little more. We want a little pressure, just not enough to bust it. So it gets snug right there. You can still see the O-ring, and we tighten it up. Grab a wrench. Snug it up, and I don't see O-ring popping out the side, so that'll work. Now when we take it back off, as long as it's not split, then we did a good job. That looks like it did fine. So now we'll do this side. We got our tank bolted back on over there. Now we've got to get the pump back off so we can see what size we're going to have to tap it. I got to get that fitting back out too. Pressure hose is out. Then I only ended up putting 2 bolts back in it. It's a bit of a tight squeeze, but we're working in here. We gotta get that pump back off so we can see what size we need to tap that. After trying to figure out how to get a fitting in here, I did a little study, and the pump off of a 87 to 90 Cherokee with the 4-cylinder looked almost identical, except for it has a barb on it already. So we're going to use this. Now, difference is these are threaded as if something's made to bolt to this pump instead of through it. But it's the same pattern. This is the same pattern. The other problem we have is where this one has a 3rd bolt over here. This one has the top part of that, but not the bottom. I was only running this with 2 bolts, so I'm not too worried about it. What I'm going to do is put it in. I'm going to put that bolt in too. I'm just going to pay attention when I tighten it up that it doesn't move too far. And then I'll do some more studying to make sure, and there's not maybe a better option that does have all those things. And really easy to remote mount. Someone else sold a fitting for a different style pump that it just had a bent piece that whenever you put this fitting in, it trapped something to hold another fitting in with an O-ring. Not really a big fan of that. So hopefully this just works out. So for now, I'm just going to drill the threads out and bolt it up. and swap the pulley. I'm gonna have to order a new pulley. They didn't have a new one at the parts store, and this one from the pull-apart's missing a chunk. It's worked just fine so far, but it is maybe gonna cause a problem one day. But I'll get this drilled out and get that swapped over. We'll get it on and hook our line back up and hook our new line to our power steering reservoir, and then hopefully the power steering system will be solved. And then eventually, if it does make a lot of heat and it becomes a problem, we'll put a cooler in line, but for now we're just going to get it working. That's ready to go on. I think the only problem we're going to have is we're going to be missing that one bolt, but I haven't had that bolt in it the whole time, so I'm really not that worried. Even with it drilled out, it's going to hit this, so it's getting 2 bolts. But I've got this upgrade bracket, because you can see the factory one. It's I guess maybe they're known for breaking or cracking, because a couple companies make this. So this is just the billet one, because those are known to break for whatever reason. So we'll get it swapped out, get this pump on, and get the hose hooked up. Here's the original. It's very light, but I guess it's thin in the way it supports it. And here's the billet one, much heavier, and it looks cool. Alright, the hoses are ran over here. I had them connected to the tank, but I had to take the tank back off to get it ready for the puke tank part of it for the coolant. So I'll show you what I've done. I took that O-ring fitting, drilled it out and tapped it. So this one just goes straight through. It's just straight in. And this other fitting, I've tapped it, and then I went on the back side and tapped it the other way. And I've got this piece of hose that's going to slide into there. Let's see how to do this with one hand. It's a snug fit in there. So when I put this fitting in, I'll set this down. So when I put this fitting in, this hose will go up towards the top. See if you can see that up there, and then it will tighten up, so that right now we're filling coolant from this part. Fluid's going in, it's just going to puke out here, but with that hose up to the top, it's got to fill all the way up before it starts draining the excess out of it. So this is a little bit of a snug fit, but it's not enough to get by just by itself, so we're going to JB weld that hose in and then trim it to length. I believe our JB weld is cured enough. So I'm just going to fish this through and leave it long for the moment. Mainly so we can help it twist so we're not fighting anything. That should be it. And we'll estimate where it's going to be in that corner. A little long's not going to hurt. And shove the hose in the hole. hose is up here in this corner. So now it's got to fill all the way up before it pukes out of this hose. Well, let's go put it on the truck. I ordered this 3/8 silicone hose, which when I was looking at it, the idea sounded good. It's still going to be fine. It just looks a little cartoony because it's huge. Because here's the old hose compared to the new hose. It just looks funny on the truck, but it'll be alright. So you got this one kind of sweeping over and around and down. I've just got a zip tie to the core support because this had these fancy zip ties that pop in with 1/4-inch hole. I've got some of those at work, but I don't have any here. So right now this will work until I get some from work. I left enough slack so this can get tied over here, because eventually I want to put some tubes on there and either put turbo guards up here or actually put some filters up in front of the radiator. But I'm torn on blocking the radiator and also sucking heat from the radiator. While you're going down the road, I really don't think it matters. But just trying to leave some room for consideration for those things. I would at least want to put a tube and then a turbo guard just to get it in front of the radiator instead of behind. But we've got that. We'll send that through that hole and just hook it up. I really hope this doesn't leak. At least not yet. I think I got some residual from putting the pump on, hooking off the header. Not exactly sure how far to fill it. Right now, the return is still underneath fluid level, but I don't know how much it's going to expand and come up. Also, I'm going to have to figure something out because these aren't vented. So if I put the cap on, it's cold and warms up, it's going to expand, probably blow the hose off. Might end up just putting a little hole in it. Calling it good enough. Making a little baffle for the inside. I'm not really sure how far I'm going to go. Might make a baffle that sits inside of here and then just put the cap on. Well, so far so good. I just took it for a ride. I did end up just drilling a hole here. I do think I'll make some kind of baffle. It just splashes out just a little bit every now and again. I am a little worried about how close everything is to the exhaust, but I went and took it for a ride. I let it sit here and idle for an hour, and this is still fine. Nothing looks like it's burnt or smoking. I put this little piece of aluminum down here, if you can see that, to keep the hose from touching the clamp. Now that the hose has gotten hot and it's cooling back down, it's kind of keeping some memory, keeping it a little further away from everything. My plan is, this probably isn't going to hurt anything while driving it, but if I'm beating on it and not getting a lot of airspeed through the engine bay, that's probably when it's going to start smoking that rubber. So I am going to find a higher temp hose and get some sleeve. I got some sleeve from the parts store. I thought would work just for temporary, but it is the exact same size as the OD. The idea of this is the same as the OD on that hose, so I could only get it a couple inches in, and then it just had so much drag on it I couldn't get this over it. Plus, I don't think this would work as well if it's real tight on it, because you don't have that air gap. I think this material and the reflector stuff plus the air gaps what really lets it do its job. So I'll get some sleeve to solve that problem. But right now, as long as I'm not beating on it in low speed, I think it's fine. I went and did some third gear pulls, and it doesn't seem to care. It's okay. So, well, it works. We'll just make it better over time. My coolant reservoir seems to work. I had to let it sit overnight to see how far it drains back down. But it's still full. I sat there and watched it get all the bubbles out of the line as this is warming up and expanding. So when it cools down, it should suck that fluid back in, and hopefully it doesn't just suck the tank completely dry. Like I said, it's still better than what it had. I'm not really that worried about it. I've ran so many things with the hose just disconnected from the tank and threw the tank away. It's not a problem. And it's reminded me just how nice it is to have power steering, because I've been driving it for a while without it, and just getting out of the driveway is a pain in the butt. And it's just making this truck more and more civilized. Nice and easy. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope it helps somebody who may be doing the same type thing. I think it's I like the Jeep power steering pump better than the original. I think it looks nicer anyway, regardless, even if you don't have turbos. I think it looks better. If you did a single turbo, you'd want to do the same thing. I think you'd actually have an easier time because you wouldn't have that up pipe. You'd have even more room. You could probably use the factory reservoir if you did a single turbo on the passenger side. But I like the remote reservoir. I think it's pretty cool. I think it looks nice over there. My plan eventually is I might leave it like that. I really just got it in silver instead of black because I knew I was going to be welding on it. But I might paint it black. But now that it's in there, I kind of like it. You got some shiny aluminum, some shiny aluminum. It kind of matches the aesthetic of everything else. The coolant overflow wasn't necessary. I just figured while I was there, it'd be cool to try it. So it's in there. But that's going to be it for this video, and I'll let you know how long this lasts. Right now, the truck still only has 3 gears. I don't have overdrive or lockup. So I'm not driving it real far. I just drive it around the house. I've got future plans. The next video is going to be oil catch can install on this thing. I got to modify valve covers and do some other things. The only oil leak I have on it is from the breather, and it's only got one breather. So we're going to resolve that with a vent to atmosphere. oil catch can. And I'll show you all the parts I got for that and everything in the next video. But if you hung in there this long, thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe. And if you're willing and able, there's a Patreon link down below. Any little bit helps. But thank you.